Good afternoon, and welcome to the Rise8 Prodacity Speaker Series, where we talk to change agents and innovators within the government tech space, exploring an expansive set of topics from start to finish, from discovery to production. My name is Jeffrey Wills, and I'll be your host for the day. I'm a software engineer at Rise8. I'm currently a user of platforms, and I've previously been a builder and operator of platforms. I got my start at the very beginning, back when Kessel Run was being founded, building and operating the Pivotal Cloud Foundry for Kessel Run. With me today, I have Anthony Butt, call sign Cheeks. He's currently the principal engineer at Second Front, previously director of technology and innovations at a government contracting company, Customer Zero at Platform One, the Air Force's platform, and an alumni of the Joint Communications Unit, JSOC. Cheeks, can you tell us about what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me on. As you kind of stated, been around platforms for a very long time. Was originally a user of platforms back when it was PCF as well, and kind of dove right into Kubernetes when it started to become popular with Rancher, and all the way up to today as I'm building a platform for my current company. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. Thanks for the update. Cheeks was one of our guest speakers at Prodacity 2022. In addition to Cheeks, we also talked with Ben Hale from VMware and Rise8's very own Eric Ebram. Content of that conversation was our platform serving. In the interest of time, we made an assumption that everyone had the same working definition of what a platform is. At least in the conversations that I've had with people, I'm not sure there is a common definition of what a platform is. Seeing that we have a little more time here today, I thought we could deep dive into the definition of a platform and maybe suss out platform from platform as a service. I believe that this will help prevent conversation participants or anybody discussing platforms from talking past each other, and hopefully expose some hidden assumptions that we're all carrying around with us. For those attending, feel free to post questions in chat as soon as they occur to you. We'll try to address them at the end during the Q&A session. So Cheeks, when someone says platform, what do they mean? What do you think they mean?
Oh man, well that's the crux of it, I think, and why we're here today, right? Too many people think it's something different, right? And I think in a nutshell, how I like to think of a platform nowadays is any set of tooling that makes someone's life easier, right? I like to distill it pretty far down there, because I think we detract too much from that, and we need to understand that inherently platforms are opinionated, and the best ones have the most opinionation in some ways, and that they need to be opinionated on behalf of their users. So that's kind of that's how I describe a platform right now.
Yeah. So you had mentioned about being into Kubernetes recently, and that this is something else I've heard people say, Kubernetes is the new platform. I'm not sure that is the case. How do you feel about Kubernetes? I certainly have some opinions, but I'll hold those back for the moment.
Yeah, I would love to get in discussion with you about this specific topic. To me, so Kubernetes it's very abstract. It was built that way by the original engineers, and a lot of people need to realize it just provides you the basic set of tools that you need to do something on your own, and much outside of that, it doesn't really do. And that's what I think folks don't understand, and I think a lot of stakeholders go out there and just say, "Oh, we just need Kubernetes," and they don't understand the enormity of that type of statement, and because just having Kubernetes is not enough anymore. While it gets you a lot of the way, it doesn't take you all the way in almost every case that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, that's sort of where I feel. It feels more like a piece of the platform, or maybe the IaaS, if you will, that supports running a platform. But by itself, in my opinion, you need to add a lot of additional tooling to really give a user that platform experience. Something I sort of skipped over and that I did want to draw out there before I jumped into that Kubernetes question was, platform and platform as a service. Is there a difference there, or is it just a matter of perspective, like as a user of a platform as opposed to an operator of the platform?
Yeah, I think this goes back into probably my original description of a platform in a nutshell, right? I think there are tools that are platforms, but also platforms as a service. It's all about the context and what you're talking about. A platform, again, as I described it, was just something that makes someone's life easier, right? And a platform as a service is just giving that out to a wider audience, in my opinion. So like a platform as a service is going to have less opinionation and give less control because they're solving very abstractly, right? They're trying to target a larger audience. Therefore, they can't be as nice as if I was trying to write a platform or build a platform that was very specific for a very specific subset of folks, right? So I like to encapsulate it like that. I think if you're going to use the word platform, big P, it's very specific to a very specific audience. Platform as a service is kind of trying to reach a larger audience. And I think you have tools that we can talk about, like AWS, that is technically a platform as a service, right? But it's a lot of people can use AWS, right? They could be completely different jobs. In fact, whereas something more specific like Big Bang or Party Bus is very specific to just software development teams, right? And the software engineer is really the user of that ending platform itself. So it's I think they're the same thing, but it's just contextualized around who the audience is.
Yeah, the scope of the audience. Platform is like, I built this specifically for my needs and my organization, where platform as a service is somebody, here's all our tooling and all our stuff. You can come in and use it, but you're going to have to use it the way that we've built it.
Yep. Okay.
Interesting. So you had mentioned Big Bang, and I think the instantiation of Big Bang is called Party Bus that Platform One runs. And then the other thing that you had mentioned was like AWS. I'm thinking I think they have a couple different PaaSes within there. One that I've used in the past is the Elastic Beanstalk. And, that there's quite a big gap between what you get with Big Bang and Party Bus and something like AWS Elastic Beanstalk provides to you. So taking the tooling and options that you get, I'd sort of like to see how that lays down over the software development lifecycle based off of the tooling that's provided, and how platforms relate to DevSecOps, DevOps, the software development lifecycle. So,
yeah, this is interesting, right? And I think one of the key outcomes for today is to take people that may not understand what a platform does to serve you or what it might do, especially in relation to our domain, which is the government. I think people jump immediately at we look at software, what I would call a software factory platform of some sort, right? Big Bang, Party Bus is one of these things, whereas AWS really isn't, right? And they have tools in there to allow developers to deliver code, maybe not to our subset of customers, but how? So I also want to subtract us away from. There are platforms for different things as well, right? So we should have platforms that are for building software and creating software that has all the tooling associated with doing that. And then we should also have platforms that run things, right? And I think that is also another onion layer, if you will, right, to what a platform actually is, right? So you can have a platform stack that that just does one conceptual thing, like the software development lifecycle, and just taking that into your opinionation on how you build it. And then there's a whole nother one, which is like, hey, running this in the government, right? And then I think trying to be too much, it's like the old Linux adage, right? Do one thing and do one thing well. I think we need to apply it to platforms just as intensely, because I think sometimes platforms have become bloated and they try to do too much. And that's where I think we see them fail a lot, or they become too critical in a lot of ways because everybody's trying to rely on it. And nothing's ever really great, which is something that we learn in software development and software engineering principles, right? So we want the thing to actually deliver value at the end of the day.
So I'd sort of like to focus in on seeing that we're talking about the government space here.
Mm-hmm.
I figured we'd go ahead and focus in on the, like Big Bang platform, because that's probably one that most people have at least heard of within the government spaces. And we have a decent technical definition of that right now. It has development team collaboration, there's source control that's provided, security is baked into the CI/CD pipeline process. So it's helping you go all throughout the development phase. I think it even has some whiteboarding and product management tools such as Jira or the GitLab boards. And it pushes the whole ways out into a production environment. So who would you say the primary users are of something like Big Bang? I think we've sort of alluded to it already, but.
Yeah, I think the main intent, the users of Big Bang would be those either implementing a platform for a software factory. So that was the use case that I personally served. So when I say customer zero, I was really implementing Big Bang I was actually there working with Platform One prior to Big Bang even existing. And Big Bang eventually came out of a lot of feedback, and it was a lot different than it is today. But what Big Bang is now is the customers of that are either folks implementing a platform, so taking in Big Bang's assumptions, and then evolving from that baseline, all the way to you have Party Bus, which is just managed Big Bang. So they implement Big Bang, and then folks just come in and they just want to develop software, and they take on their opinions. I think what's key to note about Big Bang is that none of that stuff is like, a lot of some of that stuff is not built in, right? You still need to have opinions like around your CI/CD process. Like you're going to have to make those choices, right? So even if you pick up something like Big Bang, I think it's opinionated, but it's unopinionated in the way that you allow your developers to use it. So you need to you will still have to go back and design that as well. It's not like this thing that just works right out of the box, right? While the services may come up, right, and they may be, this is contentious, but they may or may not be easy to use in that sense. Actually using it in an operational framework, you're going to have to develop what that looks like, regardless of what you do. So I think it is like a platform as a service or a platform in its own, right? But again, like we've alluded to, there's choices to be made there, and the users of such a tool, right, are pretty varying, especially in Big Bang's case, right? So you have companies now offering Big Bang as a service, right? Because I think it's at least decently well known, right? It's not that easy, right? There are like 20 tools within there, and each with their own varying depths of which you need to get into, right? Big Bang has a little bit of an opinionation on top of those tools, and I mean just a little bit. There's so much depth to just like Istio, for example, right? And that's a service mesh tool that Big Bang chose to use, but there's so much depth to just Istio. Big Bang implements it a little bit and says, hey, you should probably do these things. It doesn't force you really into anything, but you still need to take an opinion once you implement something like that and how you're going to use it, because it is such a flexible tool, as an example.
So I'd like to just go back and maybe summarize what you said there and maybe a little bit more of the previous conversation. So I think I heard you say a couple times developers or the users. And what I also took away is organizations are perhaps who benefits uh, from implementing the platform, making their dev experience easier so that they can deliver faster. And then maybe really the ultimate goal of the platform, in my opinion, is develop features to the user faster, so that you can accomplish whatever mission that you're trying to achieve in there.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe summarize some of the pros and cons that I had heard you say. I heard opinionated, like it takes pretty much gives you the happy path, march down this path, and all you got to do is push. If you're the developer, you push the easy button to develop. If you're the one operating the platform, you had mentioned Istio and all the tools, there is some complexity, which I'd like to hit next.
Yeah.
Has all the tools you need.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, I think with any platform, right, the first thing you need to think about is the goals, right? The outcomes you wish to achieve, right? At Prodacity, we talked a lot about being outcome driven, and you made a very outcome based determination there. Like, I want to be able, as a developer, I want to be able to deliver features quickly to my end users, right? And I think the crux of it, what it comes to, is I think people jump into platforms too hastily, and they don't know what those outcomes they want to achieve. So there's a lot of ambiguity around what the thing is supposed to do for you, right? It could be so many different things, and you just wanted to solve all your problems. It's like, oh, just it's just this push button click thing, and I just implement it, and all my problems are gone. Realizing like it's almost like opening Pandora's box in some ways. So I find that incredibly interesting. And then again, I think you've alluded to in the past that once you go down this rabbit hole, right, does the platform become too important, right? And that's the ultimate balance that you need to strike. The platform is the platform serving, right? Ultimate discussion point that we have is, well, you need to make it serving by strictly defining what outcomes you plan to achieve with it.
yeah.
So, and if anybody takes anything away from today, I hope that you have a higher respect for platforms that are trying to do a lot, and they do a lot. Gene Kim had mentioned at Prodacity about all the things as a developer he doesn't want to do anymore. Well, in the absence of him not wanting to do those anymore, right? Like, you don't want to have to think about authentication. You don't want to have to think about SSL. You don't want to have to think about all these things, ports and protocols, right? When the absence of a software engineer not wanting to do those things, well, that all falls on some other software engineer that needs to have an opinion about those things, right? So, if anything, let's gain some empathy around that, knowing that, hey, if you want to make something easy, that's fine, right? But you need to take an opinion out on that thing to make it easy. And yeah, but that's also a huge con, right? Of platforms, of platforms in general, right? Now you have less control because there's an opinion now sliced onto it, right? So it's like, do you need flexibility, right? Because it's a give and take process. You either lose flexibility and gain higher senses of automation and it's easy, or you kind of lose, you become more rigid, and it works well for this one can scenario, and it doesn't work well for X, Y, and Z. So defining those outcomes is really important, because pros and cons can vary greatly on your original choices for implementing something.
So, one thing I took away, actually a couple things I took away from that is like the platform is really important, what you said, and the opinions that you form in line with the goals that you want to achieve. But, at the same time, you don't it needs to be serving and making outcomes, and you don't want the platform to become a distraction that you've focused so much on it that you forgot about the accomplishments that you're trying to achieve within production there. So I've decided I want to roll a platform. How do I go about choosing? Do I just need something light like Elastic Beanstalk, or do I need to roll something that brings everything that I need with it, with all the opinions? It's going to get me the trust within the a high compliance environment like the government is.
Yeah, it's a broad enough question that I'd like to ask if do we want to scope that in any way? Just to give like a clear example of like questions I would ask given some scope. So let's say government as an example, right? So as we are, because we know government so well, it's easy for us to talk about this, at least me. So like when I think about a platform in the government, oh man, the requirements process to just get a piece of software into the government and understanding that they need to own all of that as on top of that is a huge consideration, right? So that removes a lot of things from the list immediately, right? So I need to own all the data. Nothing transiting cannot be out of my ownership, depending on the classification of the data traversing the platform, right? So like the questions I would ask myself are around that. Like, do I need to control what goes on my platform to a very strict level? Can I offload what I'm doing to some third party, some SaaS tool, that I can just pick up? And as I answer those questions, I then further scope down, and then we start asking ourselves other questions like, okay, what do I exactly need it to do? So in the government, and the reference to the software factories, we were talking about Big Bang here, right? The whole reason for Big Bang existing is a really quick baseline to get you started on developing software in a decently secure way that you can go relatively and get it approved pretty quickly, right? Because ultimately the platform also needs to be approved. It's a piece of software at the end of the day, right? That also needs to be approved, right? So starting from nothing, absolutely, like you should pick up an opinionated platform at some point from the government, whether it's government owned like Big Bang, or it's from some other service offering that's offering you a quick path to what we call accreditation in the government. I think those are incredibly important questions. And then after all that, taking into account of like, hey, I'm the government and I have these restrictions. From that, it's like, oh, what is my team actually doing, right? Am I working with a bunch of, or am I delivering products mainly to Intel folks? Am I delivering products to another subset of specific users? Because ultimately, right, what we deliver our users at the end of the day is the value, right? We can say all day that the platform makes all this easy, and that is in itself inherently valuable, but it's not valuable until we've delivered value to an end user, a mission owner, whoever it may be. And those questions also need to be back. So you take all of your requirements, so to speak. It sounds like waterfall a little bit, but it's like, I have all these restrictions on what I can do, what I can and can't do, right? Given those, now who's my user base? How do I want to serve them? Who are the users of this platform? And you can go deeper and deeper. I'm like, what's the dynamics of my team? Am I going to have software developers? Like in the case of when I was personally serving, are developers rotating in every 3 years? All right. Do I need to take that into account for stuff that I'm going to put on the platform? Do we need help upskilling when we have employee churn, essentially, right? So also very interesting things to ask, right? So it's a wide breadth of things, and reaching out for help on this stuff, I don't think is really easy in the government space. So like I'm super not to boost up Prodacity or anything, but stuff like this, to share this type of information, and like, because we took the bruises, right? You were there, right? Like you were at KR, and I was a fast follower of KR, right? So like, and even following KR, like we ran into our own problems, right? And you go through these experiences and they're not shared enough. It's sad to see that there are folks out there like they want to do really good things for their users right now, but they're running into the same mistakes that I ran into years ago. Why? And I just can't help but ask, like, what have I not done to teach other folks about those lessons I learned, right, and share those out more broadly? So I'm super appreciative of things like this, where we can share this information out. Like, hey, don't get beat up. Ask these questions first, and you'll probably make a better decision than we originally made, right? So.
Yeah, thank you. There was definitely a lot there. And I think this will roll good into the first question that I have from the participants here. Also, I'd like to say quickly that, we had more stuff to talk about, but man, the time goes by quickly. So maybe we can have a follow-up conversation on, I decided to build a platform. What roles do I need to, operate and run that platform, which I think dovetails really nice into this first question, which comes from John Brooks. Do you think the government should be building their own platforms as opposed to procuring a commercial offering? If so, under what conditions?
Okay. I had related to, I contextually, I'll follow up on the same, had a similar question to this at Prodacity itself. And ultimately, a lot of the answers in software development, and I'm sure, Jeff, you can attest to this, it's always, it depends. And it depends on the context, on whether you need it or not, right? I totally believe if you can procure the exact thing that you need, you should probably go procure it, because in the sense of it, but, and we'll get into some of the buts, because just doing that is just the easiest path forward. We didn't get to dig into like staffing a platform and the enormity of what that is, but just, take me on my word that it's a lot, and it takes a lot, and it's a huge investment. If you can procure something that does most of your job for you, you're pretty well on your path to serving your end users, probably. But it depends, right? And it definitely depends on mission set, 100%. There are just going to be some missions where building is your only choice, and you don't have the freedom to just go out and get something. As much as we like to think or dream about that day, I know we're developing platforms now that you can just go to something that helps you deliver value to end users. I think it's sort of a pipe dream in a way, because some mission sets just won't allow it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like if it's going to cost you more upfront to procure it, but if you can pay that, you're going to be way ahead of the game, because you have these organizations that their whole job is to be building the best tools, the best experience for you, where if you decide to build on your own, you got to bring all, you don't only have to operate the platform, you have to build the platform. And it's still, even though I saw there's some let up within the hiring out there right now, it's still tough to get the people with the experience, especially if you're going to roll Kubernetes. A lot of these tools are really, really new to the IT world. I mean, it's just moving faster and faster. So to get the talent that's up to date, has experience, and wants to go learn the new things so that you can be providing the best experience, so that you can deliver the fastest, to have the best mission outcomes, it is a heavy lift, in my opinion, to try to build that and operate it and build apps. Because most of these, what I've seen is app organizations are like, oh, we need a platform. We really want to build apps, but we don't have the platform. Well, let's go ahead and build the platform. So, and then they end up losing focus on what their original mission was, which was delivering those applications.
Yep, 100%. Ran into those issues head on. And I'm not even sure they're solved today, honestly. So,
Yep, it's the ever-evolving world. So I think that's all the time that we have for today, but maybe we'll have an opportunity to continue this discussion prior to Prodacity 2023. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Cheeks, it was a great conversation, and like I said, we could have gone on for hours, clearly, seeing that we burn all this time up. I'd also like to thank all of our online participants for joining. We hope to see you at Prodacity 2023 so that we can carry on the discussion there if we don't have another podcast. And you can find more information about Prodacity on our website at rise8.us/events/Prodacity. Have a great day.